Hi, everybody. So, I have received a few questions about my application packet. So, I really wanted to talk about that. I think it's important that I say to everyone that I didn't go into this thinking anything other than I need to paint a picture of a woman who is qualified for the job. That was it. And so I set about doing that. Let's start with the essays. Okay. My first essay was about me. It was like a written resume. And there shouldn't be anyone more qualified to talk about me than I am, right? So I started out with a rough draft and I sent that over to my coach, Leslie Ross. Listen, he did not lead me wrong through this entire process. Dr. Leslie Ross at the Tampa campus. Even one time he said to me, Kobe, have I led you wrong? He had. So I went with his suggestions for just about everything I did throughout this process. But I sent over my essay to Dr. Ross and he critiqued it. And then I went back to the drawing board and I called my aunt, who is 70, but she's a grammarian and she's an excellent writer, like Shonda Rhimes times 100. Um, she's really great. So anyway, I sent her my rough draft. And from there, she didn't print it out or anything. She just read it and we moved sentences around. And she could remember, her brain is so sharp. Brenda Thomas is her name. She was an English teacher at Jean Ribault Senior High School and John Gorey. Anyway, in Jacksonville. So anyway, and then she was an English coach. Let me get back to the story. So anyway, she could remember where we moved sentences from one paragraph and put it in the next. It was amazing because I couldn't do that. Her brain is so sharp. Shout out to you, Auntie Brenda. I love you. Thank you so much for helping me. Okay, so anyway, we together composed just from what I had, something that read so much better. I wanted to talk about how I have for a long time wanted to be in this field. And I didn't even know it initially. But there were some things that have happened in my life that brought me full circle. So I talked about my childhood and how we always played doctor and I was the nurse and then I was the doctor and different things. And I talked about a very, very tumultuous situation in my life with my girlfriend, Sherry Blue. And there was something so freaky that took place with the anesthesiologist. Like, that's a whole nother video. She died. And the anesthesiologist, just through my observations alone, I know that the anesthesiologist played a role in what happened to her. Yeah. So at any rate, I talked about, not blaming anesthesiologists in my paper, of course, but I talked about that situation and I brought it full circle to many different things that have taken place in my life. But I showed that I'm a team player, which is extremely important. I'm a leader, which is extremely important. In the OR, the anesthesiologist has to know what she's doing at all times. The anesthesiologist has to know what everybody else is doing at all times. You'll get that in your observations, I'm telling you. So you run the room. So I had to show that I'm capable of doing that too. I put all those things in my essay because it was important for me to paint a picture of a woman who's qualified for the job. And that's what I did. I wanted my entire application packet to say I'm qualified, which is what everybody wants, right? That's the whole point of the application. So then the next essay was for it was the anesthesiology journal. So when you do your research for this in the journals, what you're going to find is that many of the journals are actually summaries of research. So instead of doing a summary of a summary, I found the actual research article and did my own summary from that research article. And it was kind of hard, kind of condensing everything down, but I did it. It took some research in other articles and things like that to pull together my essay. But I think in doing so, I conveyed that I'm interested. I didn't just look at this article, but I found some information from another article. And hopefully the person reading it, who was probably going to be an anesthesiologist or an anesthesiologist assistant, would have some knowledge, or maybe not. Maybe I'm telling that person something new. And that's what I was going for. So that's what I did, hopefully. I won't know until I speak to the person who interviewed me, really, right? Okay, so then there was the issue of my GRE. So Dr. Ross said, hey, the school really looks well upon, 310 and higher. So I took my GRE with at home through the ETS program, and there was so many glitches. It was the most horrible testing experience ever. So I would say to you, if you can get in somewhere safely, then take it in person, or contact ATS to find out if the glitches have been cured, because it was bad. My first essay, I got kicked out of the system right in the middle of doing the essay. So that kills your momentum, your thought pattern, and I hadn't written everything down because you didn't have that kind of time. So it was all in here and it was slowly slipping away. I was about 30 minutes or so into sitting and waiting. I was 2 hours in queue just to begin the test. I was supposed to start early that morning. 2 hours later is when I started. It's just crazy. I think maybe they were understaffed or something. I don't know, but it was very rough. So by the time we got to the quantitative part, things were different. Now, let me say the vocabulary, I would really, really brush up on the vocabulary. If I were you, I would go through several practice tests first for the GRE. I did not. I only did one the night before. But I can tell you about this conversation I had with Candy, who processes applications in the Jacksonville location. Candy Griffith is her name. And she said, well, Kobe, have you taken your GRE? And I told her no. She said, have you done any practice tests for your GRE? And I hadn't at the time. She said, I have people submitting applications and they have scores like at 220 and I have to send them back. So of course, we want to know that you do really well on the quantitative, but we also have to know that you can read and write. So you can do the math for yourself. I missed one question on the quantitative because there were no glitches. And so my other two sections, the vocabulary and the writing, were not that good because there were glitches. But I asked Dr. Ross, do you think I should retake the GRE? And he said, no, just go ahead. Go for it. Shoot it. So I did. I held his word in high esteem when it came to that GRE. Oh, shoot, throughout the entire process. I'm telling you, this guy did a really good job with me. He held my hand all the way through. And it's important. It is. So if I were you, I would really reach out to one of the coaches at the schools. And Dr. Ross is great. I don't know what his availability is, for a bunch of people coming to him, but he helped me a lot. Okay, so anyway, I made a 310 on the GRE. And then there's the issue of a very, very important component of your application, which is your overall GPA for school. So let me start by saying first, when I was in school younger, I didn't do so well because I didn't take school seriously. It wasn't really what I wanted to do at the time. And I went back to school to finish my degree because I had a baby. And I didn't want him to look at me one day and say, well, why do I have to go to college? You didn't go. You didn't finish. Why do I need, that type of thing. So I went back to school. Now, truth be told, neither of my boys are in school at all. One drives trucks and the other is still finding his way. But it worked for me for this reason right here, what I'm doing now. Because I wouldn't have gone back to finish, I don't think. I started my business while I was in school. I had a whole lot of reasons why not to finish, but I did anyway. And it benefits me today. So because my GPA wasn't the best, I had to think. There's this list of prerequisites that are required. So if I can show them that after graduating in 2004, that I can come back and ace all of your prerequisites. Now, I don't know if that's going to give me the GPA that I need, but I was willing to take the chance. I did the calculations as best I could, and it seemed like it was going to be at least at the 2.75. But if I could prove in my portrait that I could ace your prereqs, then maybe you'll let me in, right? So that was my number one goal, to ace the prerequisites. So I kind of brought my business down a bit, and COVID helped with that too. So I didn't have as many people coming in, and I needed to get to work. I had to do videotapes, video entries for labs. So there was no cheating this process. You had to know the information and you had to do the work, right? So I did. I had tutors and everything, because calculus, math was the best thing for me. Like I'm good at math. I wasn't always though, but I'm good at math. So calculus wasn't as hard for me as some of the other things. Chemistry, there was calculus there, so it worked. But I really had to, make good on my commitment, and I needed to make A's. So I did. So I'm painting this picture of a woman who is qualified for the job. So that's what's important. So let's go back over. I had a 2.91 was my CASA calculation for my GPA. My GRE was a 310 overall, and I wrote the hell out of those essays. At least I thought so. When I sent it over to Dr. Ross the first time, he said, okay, here, tweak this, do this, do this, do that. Then I called my aunt with the brilliant mind and at 70, and we rocked it out. We did. So when I sent it back over to Dr. Ross, he said, oh, this is great. Oh, this is the bomb. Now, my aunt, she helped me a lot. She's a grammarian. And at 70, she just really helped me rock it out. I'm telling you, she's the bomb. So my essays said what they needed to say. And my GRE was on point, the score. And my GPA just kind of slid in there. However, I aced the prerequisites. I aced the math on the GRE. Candy says that's not all that counts. So, you gotta do well on the other parts. But, I may not have done well for Jacksonville because I haven't received an application, an interview request from Jacksonville. I got it from Tampa and from Fort Lauderdale, but nothing from Jacksonville. So Candy may see things a little differently. I'm not sure, but it only takes one, right? It only takes one. So there you have it. I did, however, receive notice from Jacksonville that they're processing my application. So maybe I'll receive a request for an interview. I'm not sure. And it's okay. You don't have to get accepted to everywhere that you apply. It only takes one. So I would say to anyone, all of you who are on this path, to paint your picture. Make it the most beautiful portrait of you that anyone could ever gaze upon. Really. That's what's important. I did not do well in all of the areas. My application was not perfect by far. It was just a perfect portrait of me and why I should have the job. There are people who come in with higher scores. You can only get up to 340 on the GRE. My 310 could be way down in comparison to what some other people are getting, right? But I did darn good on that math portion. My GPA, of course we know. I know there's so many of you watching this and you know your GPA is way above 2.91. But I aced the prerequisites. That matters. And then when it came to my letters of recommendation, every letter of recommendation that I received, I read over first. I wanted to make sure that there were no typos or things like that in those prerequisites. And I had no idea what they were really looking for in prerequisites. So I couldn't really, say this is a good one and this one isn't. And, but Dr. Ross said, hey, this one right here is really great. But listen, I had a nurse practitioner who had known me for a really long time write one of my letters of recommendation. Another one was the department, I don't want to say it wrong, gosh, and I know that I am, but he was the medical director for anesthesiology. There it is. And he is also who I shadowed with. He wrote my essay. And then my third essay was written by another anesthesiologist who's known me well. And she was able to attest to how well I functioned in school, being the oldest person and everything. I thought that was like brilliant because in my class, I'm the oldest. Hey, even at my interview, there was this one guy there who was 40 and they were saying, oh, he's old. He's a student, right? And so I just said, hey, you're not the oldest in the room. You're 40, I'm 49. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Hey, I'm 49. And in her essay, she talked about how I was not in her essay, in her letter of recommendation, she talked about how I was the oldest there. And on campus, I was the president of my chapter, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I was a member and I had a leadership role in NPHC. I was very active on campus with race relations. And then I had a young baby and then had another baby. And I did so much. I didn't even realize it until I was reading her letter. So those things matter. My letters were the bomb. And so when you're submitting it to CASA, there's this little checkbox where you can check off your rights to review the letters that are turned in. I didn't need to review, but I didn't waive my right to view the letters that were turned in just in case something went wrong. I can go back and look at my entire application and see where there was a problem. But I didn't have to check those things. These were solid people. I actually had 5 people signed up in line for letters, and I had a 4th one already written, but I couldn't, I know there was a disconnect somewhere. So, and that was from another anesthesiologist. And the 5th person was this really great guy that I observed at the hospital, and he's an AA. He's been in the business for 15 years. In the practice, maybe not the business, but the practice for 15 years. So I have no doubt his letter would have gone well too. But at any rate, we only needed 3. So I got those 3 in. So that concludes my picture. And we're about 20 minutes in now. And I don't want to be so long-winded for you guys. And this one is really long. So anyway, thanks to everyone who has held my hand the entire way. Thanks for all of the good suggestions and the questions and the support through all of this. I'm closing down my house here in Jacksonville and trying to find something in South Florida. So I think I'm going to stay with my mom for the first month to find things there and then kind of, do what I can and get closer to the school. Okay. Happy trails, everybody. Blaze them high, blaze them high. Your journey is yours and you can do it. Okay. Peace.